What is going on, guys? Zombie Wars here, and welcome back again to another video. Today we got a brand new interview from Mathieu Cote. This was done by the YouTube channel Testy Ganon Benj, which it's entirely in French, so thankfully it's been translated for us by Doctor Who for DVD yet again. So big shout out to Doctor Who for DVD for translating these interviews. So there is a bunch of cool information as well as some disappointing news, which I'll get into later on in this video. But we got some awesome stuff, including Five Nights at Freddy's updates and even a mention of Predator. So please be sure to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I cover DVD news just like this, as well as speculation. We just hit 3,000 subscribers, and I'd love to see some new awesome faces on the channel. So I'm going to be covering, I guess, the most important aspects of this thread. I, of course, will leave a link to the thread in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself. So let's start off with Five Nights at Freddy's. Mathieu was asked why they didn't include a survivor with the Five Nights at Freddy's chapter, and he said that there were a lot of different factors that led to there being no survivor. But one of the reasons that was given is that the FNAF games were played in a first-person POV, which didn't highlight any immediate recognizable characters. I don't really agree with that reasoning. I just feel like that's kind of a weak reasoning not to include a survivor, but that's just my take. I think this is just in a way of saying that there's no confirmed look for a survivor, so they didn't want to do it. But I still feel like Michael AFTON is the candidate that most people wanted to have. So I'm not sure why that isn't the case, unless it was a decision by Scott. Me, I'm not a big fan of this reasoning. I don't know if I'm unjustified thinking that way, but I think that this reasoning is kind of weak to not include Michael AFTON as a survivor. Because although we don't have a canonical look for Michael AFTON in the games, I feel like he is the recognizable candidate to be a survivor. Not only that, but there's also Mike Schmidt from the movie, where even if they don't get the likeness rights, they can still have him from the movie. I still think we're going to get legendary skins at some point, but it is still a disappointment that we didn't get a survivor for the chapter itself. So I'm really hoping that Behavior and Scott can maybe work together again to make legendary survivor skins, because I know a lot of people were really looking forward to there being a survivor with this chapter. This also to me screams that we're probably not going to get any survivor legendaries, at least not for a while, because it seems like it's not even on their radar. They did later say in the interview that Mathieu did admit there could have been a survivor, but they chose to focus on the map and Springtrap. So I'm hoping this means that maybe they'll go back and make a legendary skin or something. But again, it did kind of miss the mark that we didn't get a survivor with the chapter, but I think the fact that Mathieu did say they could have done a survivor makes me think that it's possible they'll go back and do some sort of legendary in the future. Mathieu confirms when doing likenesses for DVD, the actors have the final say to approve or deny their work. They can say whether, you know, their face can look like theirs or not, so the devs can capture their likeness or better greenlit. This is important, I guess, for, say, a character like Mike Schmidt from the FNAF movie. If they were to do Mike Schmidt from the FNAF movie, they would have to get the likeness rights for Josh Hutcherson, which I think he would be on board. I just have the feeling. But that's just like another hurdle they would have to go through, I guess, if they were to do Mike Schmidt from the movie instead of Michael AFTON. Mathieu was then asked about FNAF skins for OG characters, so say like original Dead by Daylight killers. He responds that the problem is that the gameplay loop would have to match with the FNAF characters, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. We know that this is a rule that Scott put on them already. Now here's what I find interesting. Mathieu actually confirmed it's possible we can get OG character skins, but dismissed Vanny as a legendary skin. Now this is honestly something I'm surprised by. First of all, this implies that we're not getting any other legendary skins aside from what was shown on stream. But this also just outright denied that Vanny is going to be a part of the game. I am a little surprised by this, because honestly, I thought Vanny was going to be one of the most likely legendary skins we would get. But it looks like Vanny is officially deconfirmed. Again, I think these are things that will maybe get fixed later down the road, that they will reconsider, like with Scott and Behavior. Because even in the same interview, Mathieu did say that with the reception that FNAF had, they want to pursue further content with FNAF in DVD. I don't know if this means just future skins, or if this means even a second chapter, but nevertheless, if Scott's interested, it looks like we're going to be getting additional FNAF content in Dead by Daylight. And I'm assuming from the reactions that Scott is also most likely pleased from this as well. Hey, so this is editing Zombie Wars here. So I actually didn't think about this till I started editing. This doesn't outright deconfirm Vanny coming into the game. It just means it won't be a Legion skin. So it's potentially possible that we might get some sort of Vanny skin for Springtrap in the future, or even on the release potentially. So moving on from Five Nights at Freddy's, Mathieu Cote did say that they're going to keep collabing with Japanese licenses. The interviewer actually brought up the Grudge and Dragon Ball Z as possible collabs, and Matthew doesn't respond directly, but acknowledges them as possibilities. I think the fact that Dragon Ball Z isn't like outright denied is crazy. So hey, Dragon Ball Z is on the table for Dead by Daylight. I wonder if that's going to be like the next debate that people have, like Darth Vader. I don't think we're gonna be looping as Goku or anything, but it's interesting that Dragon Ball Z is considerable for Dead by Daylight at this point. We also got some news on Robert Englund Freddy. He says that the Robert Englund Freddy would be a very difficult skin to implement because he would have to work with 2 different licenses, and getting 2 companies to work together is rather difficult. And not to mention, the Nightmare on Elm Street license that we do have does seem to not want to work with DBD at all for the most part. So I think this one is pretty much soft confirming that we're not going to get any Robert Englund Freddy in DBD probably ever. But it's interesting that this was brought up because I don't think this has ever actually been brought up by Behavior before. Personally, this is a skin I would love to run, but I just think logistically this would be a nightmare to implement. No pun intended, of course, but you know, sadly, I don't think we're going to be getting a Robert Englund skin anytime in the near future. Now, I thought this was also interesting. Matthew said that the door to games played with a first-person POV, such as Bendy and the Ink Machine, are never closed and can definitely happen if people want those sort of things. It's interesting that Bendy and the Ink Machine in particular was brought up. It's cool to see that Bendy is being brought up more, because I know that after FNAF was added, people were starting to question, well, what about Bendy? Can Bendy be added? So it looks like Bendy is certainly a possibility to come to Dead by Daylight. It looks like the Meatly wants it. It looks like Behavior is interested. So I guess it just comes down to whether the fans want it or not if Bendy gets added. Matthew said that survivors don't need to be strictly horror, but they have to be relatable people that can be beaten by the killers. He says that they tend not to do pure hero characters like Dutch from Predator, since they want people that have weaknesses and strengths. This is something I've always said. I feel like when it comes to survivors with DBD, they don't need to be from horror, because if you look at the roster of a lot of characters in Dead by Daylight, a lot of them are just regular people. I'm specifically talking about a lot of the OG characters. I think when it comes to killer, that's when we should probably be a little more horror focused. I feel like this comes back to the whole DBD Darth Vader debate. I feel like when it comes to survivors, they're kind of in their own realm, because survivors, they don't have to be from horror, they're just people. But killers have to be something horror adjacent, I feel. I still feel like they could do Darth Vader in a way that would fit that, but it's just something I wanted to bring up. Now, this is interesting for lore. Matthew says we will learn more about characters like Vigo and the Observer, but they say that these characters probably won't ever come as actual characters that we can play as. This is interesting to me because I feel like we don't really hear much about Vigo or the Observer since he's disappeared. So it's cool that we're going to actually learn more lore about them. It also deconfirms that we'll probably get like an Observer, Killer, or Survivor. Another interesting license idea is that Matthew says there is no problem adding free public domain licenses to DBD, such as Frankenstein. However, if licenses are only a bit free, as in partially free, then it would be difficult. I know a lot of people want the classic, I guess, universal monsters in DBD. I would love Frankenstein as a killer, maybe even just a skin. So it is something they want to do, but it would have to work licensing-wise for them. Now, this is something interesting because of the discussions from the Jorogumo, but Matthew actually commented on an arachnophobia accessibility option due to those rumors being brought up. He says he's not sure if it will come, if there will ever be an arachnophobia accessibility option, but at the same time, it's a possibility, and it's actually something they brought up before when introducing the clown to DBDs several years ago. I know that was a big argument people had about there being an arachnophobia option. It's like, what about people with this phobia or this phobia? So it's interesting that Behavior has thought about it, but is not sure if they are going to do it. Matthew actually did state something on the matter. He said, at the end of the day, what they're making is a horror game, so the goal is to scare you. He apologizes, but says if perhaps you don't like being scared, you should play something else. Perhaps Civilization. Didn't say that part, but I think it is interesting that he is saying pretty much that they are not really leaning on adding an accessibility option. That's pretty much all the, I guess, nuggets from it. Of course, I'll leave this thread down in the description below if you would like to read it all for yourself, because there is a lot of information. A lot of it isn't as hard-hitting, but there was some interesting stuff I wanted to bring up. I am disappointed, like I said, that we're probably not going to get a Vanny skin for this chapter. I was really looking forward to possibly getting surprised by that, but again, looks like that's not going to be the case. But I'm going to end off the video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. I'll see you all next video. Have a great day, and peace out. Bye, guys.